2022 was an up and down year for gamers. We got amazing games that we waited forever for, like Elden Ring and God of War, while many others were delayed or pushed back. AAA titles were hit and miss, but some of the most innovative and creative games of the year were indie developed. These are the ones I want to talk about today. So here are 6 indie games that you might have missed out on in 2022. The first game I want to talk about is the one that was most surprising to me, and that is a game called Neon White. Most of these games were not on my radar at all until I played them, but Neon White was definitely the farthest out there, and that is because when I heard what the game was about, it just didn't sound like something I would be excited for. It's a mix of an FPS, speedrunning, and a dating simulator. Now, if that doesn't sound like your cup of tea, don't jump the gun and dismiss it, because you may be missing out on your next addiction. You are a Neon, a demon slayer pulled up from hell to compete against other demon slayers in a competition where the winner gets to stay in heaven, which sounds a lot cooler than my initial description. But the game boils down to small levels where you collect cards that give you weapons and abilities to get through the level as fast as possible. Completing the level will unlock other things like the ghost of your fastest run and hints on where you can cut the course for a faster time. You can also revisit levels to collect gifts that you can then give to the other Neons you're competing against. In between rounds, you explore and chat with others to build relationships and attempt to figure out how and why you are really there. It sounds like a lot, but in all honesty, it's pretty simple and levels are super quick. This is what makes it so addicting. It's pure fun and a game you have to try. Next on the list is Immortality, a game that I just recently played. Recently as in last night. It's actually the inspiration for this video and was so interesting, thought-provoking, and honestly just creepy that I had to find a way to talk about it. It's less of a traditional game and more of an interactive movie where you try to piece together what happened to a woman who has disappeared by watching clips of old movies she starred in. Here's the problem though, I can't actually tell you anything significant about the game because that would pretty much ruin the whole point. You'll just have to trust me on this. If you can set aside a chunk of time to mentally dive into this mystery, you absolutely won't regret it. Signalus wears its inspirations all over its sleeves, and I don't mean that as a negative. In fact, for a week or so, I absolutely could not put this game down. What makes that more impressive is that I'm not really an old school survival horror fan, and that's exactly what Signalis sets out to replicate. Most retro-inspired games shoot for pixel art graphics and are the type of games that were popular during the 8 or 16-bit console eras. Signalis aims for the art style of a generation later, using polygons and low-res environments to set up a creepy atmosphere. Add to that the playstyle of Resident Evil, combined with beautiful anime-inspired cutscenes and a story of post-apocalyptic artificial intelligence, and you have one hell of an experience. Most of you have probably heard the next game on the list, Stray. What you might not have known, however, was that it was an indie-developed title, and you would be forgiven for that. A lot of Stray feels very first-party. For one, it was pushed pretty hard by Sony, and was even included in the PS5 reveal announcement a few years ago. For another, it's absolutely beautiful. What definitely feels independent, though, is the creativity. It's not every day that you play as a cat, especially not a normal cat. No talking, no superpowers, nothing. I could say quite a bit about Stray, and in fact, I have. So I'll put a link in the description down below if you would like to watch the full video. Up next is Rogue Legacy 2, and even though I said earlier that most of these games weren't on my radar, this was the exception. The first Rogue Legacy was ridiculously addictive and fun. It's a game that I have personally sunk so many hours into that it's embarrassing. It took the much-used Rogue formula of generating a new playthrough every time you die, and added a family tree where every new character is part of your family and inherits things you have unlocked. The main reason it was a success, though, was its addictively simple but perfected gameplay. Not all platformers feel this good, and I've always described Rogue Legacy as playing like Mario with a sword, and that's a huge compliment. Rogue Legacy 2 just multiplies everything the first game did. More classes, more abilities, more areas, more bosses, and more polish. It doesn't break the mold by any means, but it is a really good game. I didn't mention it at the beginning, but these games were in no particular order. Well, up until now. I did save the best for last in my opinion. Rollerdrome has been described as Tony Hawk mixed with Max Payne. Admittedly, that sounds pretty awesome, and it does give you a pretty good idea of what this game is about, but somehow it doesn't quite tell the whole story. The gameplay is fast, fluid, and intense. The skating aspect feels as good as any skating game ever, and the shooting is precise and fun. Everything from the art direction to the way you reload your weapons by landing tricks feels original and unique. It's the first game I've played in years that you have to play the tutorial or you will have no idea how to play. That alone is a point in its favor. Basically, Rollerdrome is a really original game that plays as well as it looks, and was on my short list this year for Indie Game of the Year. But that's all the games that I have to talk about today. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, then head over to the channel. We have well over 100 videos now, most of them being reviews, so if you're looking for a game to play, or just want to know if a game's good, there's a good chance that we've already talked about it. And if you really liked the video, then hit that like button. Also consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell so that you can keep up to date with all of our newest videos. And finally, if you have any recommendations or just want to chat, then feel free to use that comment section down below. We're still a super small channel, so I pretty much reply to everyone. But that does it for me. This has been Zach with Amateur Game Review, and I'll see you guys in the next video.